All right, everybody, we're back. Brand new Friday review here on the Cabral Concept. This is episode 3122. So if you're tuning into the show, you want all of the research links, you want the product review, head on over to stephencabral.com/3122 now. So what I want to go over today, some brand new research in, unfortunately, a dis-ease of old age that affects about 1 out of every 3 people, and it accounts for 10 million deaths annually. So certainly something we should be looking at. Another one by popular request: does hydrogen water actually work? How does it work? And I have a very interesting study for you, and it shows exactly who it helps and others that it may not help as much. So we'll go over that today. We've got a quick tip for you. This one's probably a little bit longer than a quick tip. It's in between basically a book review and a quick tip. It's about 24 pages long. I'm going to link all that up for you completely free. So if you'd like to go through it like I do, love reading the research, I'm going to share that with you. That is called Precision Nutrition for Alzheimer's Prevention in a particular group of, we'll call it ApoE genotypes. And I'll talk about that and see if you may have that as well. And the last one we'll go over is our product review, which has a little bit to do with our research. So before we get into the show, bring you all of these nice research studies and product reviews, etc., I want to share with you that we have the ability as a global health community to come together each and every year. And we do that and have done that the last 3 years in October in sunny Florida. Kids have gone back to school. You've kind of got back into your fall swing of things. And towards the end of October, we gather together as a community. There are over 24 exhibitors, all of the best of red light therapy and oxygen-based therapy and PEMI beds, if you've never heard about that before. We have so many amazing exhibitors. I don't want to give it all away. And we also have 16 different talks over those 2.5 days. I would love to meet you, and so would my team. We'd love to meet you in person, and you can get your tickets for this event called the Reimagine Health Summit right now by going to rhsevent.com. Head on over and go to rhsevent.com and use the code Cabral100 to save $100 today while tickets remain. Hope to see you there. All right, getting into the show right now. If you missed it this week, Monday's show was the 80-20 rule, revisited for success. So tune into that show for sure. Tuesday's show was the simple tips to hack your happy hormones. If you've never heard about that before, we go over natural ways, easy ways to increase oxytocin, to increase endorphins, to increase dopamine, and to increase serotonin, and which one you might be low in, just a little quiz, and then wet activities. There's 4 to 5 of them that you can choose from to boost any one of those happy, healthy neurotransmitters or hormones. All right, so that was the past week. All those are at stephencabral.com/podcast. Now let's get into the product review of the week. It's been a while since I went over this product. It's been a while since I've talked about it, but it has to do with our research here today. So I want to make sure that every household has one. Now, you know that our motto over at Integrative Health Practitioner Institute is that we want to put a health coach in every home. That's our goal. That's literally our goal, is that they don't teach this in school. Your conventional medicine doctor is certainly not going to share it with you. So how can you learn about at-home lab testing? How can you learn about protocols to help with mold or yeast overgrowth or bacterial overgrowth or parasites or sleep issues or skin issues or digestive issues or any of these things? Well, we teach that at the Integrative Health Practitioner Institute. And so our goal, like I said, is to put a health coach in every home, teach people to heal themselves and to heal others. It's also an amazing, rewarding career to become a certified health coach. You can find out more at integrativehealthpractitioner.org. But I also want every single person out there to be able to understand and have access to their own health. And so one of the things that I do recommend is a very simple blood pressure monitor. Now, the blood pressure device is called an Omron. They're at right now the Series 3, so 3 series. It's an updated one. Excellent reviews across the board on Amazon. And it is one that, again, like I said, every home should have. But it's an automatic one, so you don't need to pump it. You don't need to know how any of that works. What I want to share with you, though, is that not everybody puts it on correctly. I've actually been to doctor's offices as well where it is improperly put on. So really simple, really straightforward to put on a blood pressure monitor. And if you're watching this on video, phenomenal. If you want to see it on video, just head on over to stephencabral.com/3122 or tune in over on YouTube. We'd love to have you as a subscriber, as a follower over there. So here's the thing though, when you put on a blood pressure cuff, What you want to do is to put it on your left arm, and you want to put the cuff about an inch, or if you have longer arms, about 1.5 inches above the crease in your elbow, on the top of your arm, over your bicep. Then you want the tubing that is on that cuff, to run down your arm. What I did when I was in clinical practice, in person, not just virtual, I actually ran the tubing just between an individual's middle finger and ring finger, and I just let it sit there. Then I had them place their arm on a desk in front of them and just breathe and relax for a couple minutes before I took their blood pressure. So now they have their arm just about heart level or just below, not too far low, and definitely don't want your wrist or elbow above your heart. So then all we do is press the start button on the Omron device, sit still, no speaking. This is really important. Do not hold your breath, and also do not hyperventilate. Just breathe normally. I also recommend, and I said this to all the individuals that I would do their blood pressures, don't look at the monitor. You don't want to look at it, right? You just want to relax, look away, not have a conversation, no talking. Again, like in the doctor's office, they might be asking you questions when you're having your blood pressure taken. It makes no sense. So I've seen all sorts of wacky things. Then you just take your reading, and I typically recommend that you take it 3 times. It takes about 30 seconds. That's all to get your blood pressure. And what you want to do is to make sure that you're taking your blood pressure in the morning and in the evening. All right. What they've found is that elevated evening blood pressure is actually and potentially the most dangerous. So you take your blood pressure in the morning, you take it in the evening. Now, if you've done that for 5 days and it's totally normal, what is totally normal? Somewhere between about 110 and 120 for the top number, that's the systolic, and then somewhere between 70 and 80 for the bottom number, that's the diastolic. Okay. So those are just basically ideal norms. It could be a little lower, and as long as you're not lightheaded, you don't have weakness, anything like that, no problem with it being lower. But some people, as their diastolic, the bottom number, starts to get into the 60s or high 50s, they sometimes start to feel a little bit lightheaded, a little bit weak. And also that top number dropping below 100 can oftentimes induce a lot of those same symptoms. Usually those individuals need to play with their electrolytes a little bit, but I can't give you any medical advice, medical treatment plans, medical cures, medical diagnosis. So again, a doctor almost never says it's too low. Usually, again, I can't give you medical advice, but most people need to increase their healthy level of sea salt in their diet. And that can be quite helpful, as well as working on any adrenal HPA axis issues. Okay, so now too high though. So if you have normal blood pressure and you've been doing this for a week, you really don't need to check it all that often. You honestly don't. You're probably pretty good. Now, if you are someone though with BP above 120 for the top number and above 80 for the bottom number, you'll want to keep an eye on it more regularly until you can bring it to a point of lower and normal blood pressure. Okay, I have many shows on that as well, so you're welcome to check those out at stephencabral.com/podcast. But what if it's too high? Well, too high is 135 or higher over 90 or higher. So the reading used to be 140 over 90. Over the last, well, probably 10 years ago, honestly now, it's been a while, they moved it down to 135. They really want people below 130. I don't disagree with that. But you just want to make sure that you're not amped up. You didn't just exercise. You didn't just drink a big cup of coffee, and that's when you took your blood pressure. So it does matter. I mean, it is your blood pressure. But what you want is just to find whatever your levels are every morning, every evening. Make sure that they're about 120 over 80 or lower would be the ideal that we're looking for, all right? If they're above that, see your PCP, see your doctor, and also listen to my podcasts that are completely free on how to lower your blood pressure naturally. And I am going to recommend that you run something like the Big 5 labs to find out why your levels may be elevated and to begin to work on those. And we'll talk about why, because in the research today, I go through that. All right. So that is the product review with a little bit of education around it on the Omron Blood Pressure Monitor. They have a newer device, and it's just the 3 series. And that's always on my resource page. So all of my 100+ favorite resources that I use in my family, my practice, are at stephencabral.com/resources. All right. So today we're going to be doing something in between a book review, which I love giving you my favorite books, or a quick tip. This is a study that I have I have an amazing scientist. I like to refer to him as a scientist on my team. We work on product formulations together. Masters in nutrition, really talented, smart guy. What I typically do is say, this is what I'm looking for in a formula. We go back and forth. He's basically has research studies on everything. We look at the clinical dosage, then we work with formulators to make this happen. And typically it's like 12 months to work on a product minimum to get it out. Well, he knows that I'm very interested in longevity and studying the brain, as well as studying the ApoE genotype. And there's a book, and I read the book many years ago on the ApoE genotype, but not a lot has come out since, especially in long format, except for individual one-off studies. So if you're not familiar with the ApoE genotype, there's a 2, a 3, and a 4 allele, and you get 1 from each parent. And so you could be a 2-3, you could be a 3-3, you could be a 4-4, you could be a 3-4, 2-4, etc. So anytime that you have a 4 in that allele, you're more prone to Alzheimer's. You're more prone to inflammation in general. That's really the issue. You're more prone to dysregulated blood sugar. You have issues potentially with all of the metabolic-based syndromes of the body. And so the nice thing is this, though, just because you have it doesn't mean that it's ever going to be displayed in your health. So it doesn't mean that you're getting Alzheimer's if you have an ApoE genotype 4-4 or a 3-4. It just means you're more prone. And so you just probably have to be a little bit more careful, and that's okay. Like, it's okay. So there's a really nice study on this. Well done, well done. It was published in Nutrients. It's called Precision Nutrition for Alzheimer's Prevention in ApoE4 Carriers. I've gone through the whole thing for you, but I'm going to link it up for you at stephencabral.com/3122. I'll probably do a whole podcast just on this, but there's 2 parts to it. First, if you don't know your ApoE genotype, it's very important to find out. I will link up a lab test today. It's called a biological age lab test. Find out your biological age. So chronological age, let's just say you're 46 years old. What's your biological age? And that could either be 46, so what it is, like your chronological age, could be above, could be 55, could be lower, could be let's say 41, could be 37. And so that's what we want to look at. But that same test will give you your MTHFR results as well as your ApoE genotype. So really great lab to have. What I want to share with you is this, and I've talked about the ApoE genotype 4 before. I'll link that up on today's show notes as well. So what we're looking at are individuals whose brains are more affected by beta amyloid plaque. They're affected because they can't synthesize cholesterol as well. And that's why I've warned before that ApoE, that at least 26% of the population doesn't really do great with high levels of cholesterol or saturated fat in their diet. They can have some. It's not that they can't. They just don't seem to process it very well. This backs that up as well, specifically in the brain. So the brain using about 25% of that, which is really, really important for those fats. And then they can't control inflammation and oxidative stress as well. So this went through the whole study, how exactly it works, and then it gave recommendations. And I want to give you some of those recommendations right now, because this show is about teaching you, but it's also about giving you the fish as well. You want to actually see what it is that can help. So they recommended a lower glycemic diet. They recommended a Mediterranean diet, like we always talk about here on the show, right? They recommended extra virgin olive oil. I'll probably do, again, a whole show as to why, but all of these assume that they cut down on inflammation and oxidative stress in the body. Okay, the next one is they recommended certain vegetables. Very interesting, though, capers and red onions, specifically because they're higher in quercetin, and they decrease NF-kappa B and other inflammatory markers. Actually, we're going to be talking about NF-kappa B later in today's research. So this, I didn't even make the connection right there. All right, they recommend fatty fish, so fish oil, high in EPA and DHA. They recommend no alcohol for people with an ApoE4 genotype. They said literally 1 or more times per month had a higher risk for Alzheimer's disease for those that never consumed alcohol. So alcohol in the ApoE4 genotype just does not mix at all. They recommended quercetin, resveratrol, vitamin D, vitamin 2, and then all of your methylated B vitamins. Then they also recommended lithium. There are a couple things that I'm not a huge advocate of and what they recommended because they can have other effects in the body, other stressors in the body. Lithium was a strange one. I see why they recommended it, but I would be cautious on that one. I really would. So there's that. Those are the initial recommendations. It's a great paper. If you already know you or a loved one has the ApoE4 genotype, my opinion, nothing to overly stress about. You just know that you have to be a little bit more cautious with your nutrition, with your alcohol and your supplementation. And I think you're honestly, you're going to be good. We've seen that. We've seen that play out in my practice. We've seen that play out in the research as well. Not everybody gets it. It's just being more aware. All right, I'm going to link this up. Excellent, excellent study. 24 pages, basically like the perfect length for a study to learn a lot, but then get specific action tips. Okay. Let's go over now 2 specific research studies. The first one on hypertension. I wanted to read this to you. This is important. It's why I also did the product review here today. So most people don't know that they even have high blood pressure. And I found this wildly informative. So this was just done 7 days ago. Literally 7 days ago. High blood pressure affects 45% of US adults. In the 1970s, only about 50% of patients were aware of their hypertension. Today, 54% are aware of their high blood pressure and 40% are actively treated, 21% are actively controlled. So these stats are terrible. It just means that 1 out of 2, so basically 45% of Americans, let's just call it 1 out of 2, are affected by high blood pressure. It's a little less, right? Okay, but only half of those 1 out of 2. So let's say there's 160 million Americans. All right. So 80 million have high blood pressure, which is unbelievable. I don't know that the stats could possibly be that high. High blood pressure affects about 45% of US adults. I believe there's about 160 million US adults. I actually think the number is higher. I'm just being a little bit more conservative. So that's a pretty wild number. But only half of those people know they have high blood pressure. And the reason why it's called the silent killer is because it can lead to a stroke or other issues in people that ordinarily just think that they're, as they call it, alive and well. So I really want to hit this home today that most people who have high blood pressure, or at least about half, don't even know they have it. Use the blood pressure monitor. If you have older adult parents or grandparents, buy them the blood pressure monitor. Do it for them, show them how to use it. It's very simple, and it very well could save their life. They can use a pharmaceutical-based methodology to lower it, or they can use a natural health-based methodology, or both if they choose to. My recommendation, even if you're using the pharmacological type, is that eventually you want to move towards a natural based version. The reason is that these blood pressure medications can be very hard on the kidneys, unfortunately, and can lead to kidney-based issues. Okay, so that is research study number 1. Of course, I will link it up for you today at episode 3122. But this next study is really fascinating. So it's pretty wild because there's a few things that I posted on social media that I've gotten more comments and feedback on than almost any other. The first one, which you're not going to believe, was an obscure research study that showed that grandparents who watched their grandchildren more often lived the longest. Now, I said that almost in passing, but I thought it was interesting research. But I said it from the reality, and the reason why is that it gives people purpose. It gives them meaning. It oftentimes brings them joy. And there's a real reason in retirement then to keep on going. That's why I even mentioned that. Like that was the whole thing around that. Not necessarily like, that it was watching grandchildren specifically, but of course, people like that and they like to share it for that reason. And it got tens of millions of views, which is wild. So like out of all the research I ever shared, that happens to be it. But hey, whatever works, right? Whatever people want to share, they can share. But I also shared one on my research that I have done over almost a 2-year period before bringing it out. And that was on hydrogen water. And that's because it's just hard to believe that it really works that well. It really is. It's hard to believe that it works that well, but it does. That's literally the bottom line. And there's almost no side effects. The only side effects is that people who drank too much of the water, it could lead to GI issues. But that could just be because they drank too much water, like in general. Interesting, very interesting. So this is another research study that I wanted to bring you. And if you want all of the research that I looked at, well, not all of it, but a lot of it, as well as the videos that I actually conducted research and testing myself, you can go to stevencabral.com/hydrogen-water. stevencabral.com/hydrogen-water. And hydrogen is HYDROGEN and then just -water. Okay, so this study was unique. They ran blood work on individuals that were given either tap water or they were given ionized hydrogen water. So not just high pH water. I want to mention that because there's another study that I'm going to share, I think, next week, that not all, pH waters are created equally. I don't want to give it all away. It's a very interesting study. You can't just add higher pH water and expect better results. So that was interesting. This is actually hydrogen-rich water. And what they did was they looked at the test subjects in their blood work, something called biological antioxidant potential. They called it BAP, B-A-P. And what they found was that in one group, in the hydrogen water, so neither one of them increased it with tap water. That's not really surprising, right? Neither group. But they found that only one group that consumed the hydrogen-rich water, that it improved by a significant statistic, and the other group it did not. Well, here's what they found. That the group that was under 30 years old did not see improvement. However, the group that was over 30 years old saw significant improvement in their antioxidant levels in their blood, which helps to squelch free radicals. Because if you actually look up the research on hydrogen water, it is definitive that it improves oxidative stress and free radicals, something called reactive oxygen species. So what it does is it removes a lot of the oxidative stress, the free radicals, thereby decreasing inflammation. And what I talked about earlier is in improving NF-kappa B, which was what they talked about specifically with I think I was talking about the Alzheimer's-based research as well. So, really fascinating. And that is why I want to bring this here to you today, is because when we are younger, our bodies are better able to deal with oxidative stress. And that is why we recover faster from workouts. We have more energy. We don't necessarily need as much sleep. We're just better able to buffer oxidative stress. That's the bottom line. But as we get older, and in this, only 30 years old, as we get above 30 years old, we need more antioxidant potential. And hydrogen water is just a simple way to get it because truthfully, we all need to be drinking water each and every day. And you can even use hydrogen-rich water in your coffee or tea or smoothies or whatever you may drink. So I switched to it about 6 months ago or so. I'm not going back. You can actually notice a significant difference. I'll actually bring you more research on that. There was head-to-head research on caffeine versus hydrogen water. I'm not going to give away the ending, but pretty impressive. I'm not giving up my 1 cup of coffee a day, but what I'm saying is it's still pretty impressive. So for all the details on hydrogen water, if you want to learn more about it, head on over to stevencabral.com/hydrogen-water. That is it for today's show. All of the show notes, links, the biological age test, the Omron, everything will be at stevencabral.com/3122. Have an amazing rest of the day. I'll be back this weekend, starting tomorrow, with our Cabral House calls. Take care. Thanks so much for tuning into today's show. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I want to make sure that you're getting our daily content, not missing out on anything functional medicine, wellness, weight gain, weight loss, anti-aging, living longer, stronger, and all of the most cutting-edge research. And if there's any topics you want to hear, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Take care.